They called my Marina operation outdated. What Victoria Pemberton didn't know was that I owned every pier, every fuel pump, and every repair base she was standing on. My name is Walter Hoffman. Most people call me Walt. I'm 49 years old, and I've been running Pemberton Coastal Marina for 22 years. Before that, I was a sergeant in the Marine Corps for 8 years. When people ask what a harbor master does, I tell them simple. We keep boats floating and people safe. We don't do theory, we do what works. Tuesday morning, 10:15 a.m., I'm sitting in Victoria Pemberton's office on the second floor of the harbor building. Glass walls on 3 sides looking out over 240 boat slips, a deep water fuel dock, and a certified repair facility that I've kept running for more than 2 decades. She's got her MacBook open, typing something. The chair I'm in sits about 2 inches lower than normal. She had facilities swap it out the week she started. Some people earn respect through competence. Victoria uses furniture tricks. Jeanette Walsh from HR is standing behind her with a manila folder pressed against her chest like body armor. Janet's been here 11 years. Good woman. She's studying the carpet like it contains survival instructions for this meeting. Victoria finishes typing, probably the LinkedIn post, and looks up with that practiced smile. The one that says she's about to ruin your day and feels great about it. Walt, I want to be transparent about our operational restructuring. We've identified several inefficiencies in the current Marina model, and frankly, your facility represents outdated overhead that doesn't align with our modernization goals. I don't say anything. My hands stay folded. The tide chart in my pocket sits still. We're pivoting to a curated waterfront experience. Event hosting, premium charters, wine partnerships, the fuel dock, the repair bays, these are relics, Walt. They smell like diesel and they look like 1987. We need to optimize this footprint. She waits for me to argue. I don't. Your position as Marina Operations Director is being eliminated effective immediately. Jeanette has your separation paperwork. We're providing 2 weeks severance, which is generous given the restructuring scope. She does this little head tilt and exhale through her nose, the laugh she uses when she thinks someone's too simple to understand the big picture. I know change is difficult, especially for people who've been doing the same thing for decades. But this is what forward-thinking business looks like. Jeanette shifts her weight, still hasn't looked up. I can hear the Marina through the glass, a diesel engine idling at the fuel dock, the clang of a shackle against an aluminum mast somewhere down sea dock. Sounds I've been hearing for 22 years, sounds she just called relics. I unfold my hands. Stand up, pick up my coffee from the corner of her desk. Understood. Thank you. 4 words. That's all she gets. I walk out. Behind me, Janet exhales. Not the same way Victoria does it. Janet's exhale is relief. The kind you hear when someone's been holding their breath during a conversation they wanted no part of. The LinkedIn post goes up 14 minutes later. I know because Troy Valdez screenshots it and texts it to me before I reach my truck. The headline reads, "Difficult Decisions and the Courage to Modernize." She used the hashtag curated experiences. Here's what Victoria Pemberton didn't know and what nobody in Pemberton Coastal Enterprises' current leadership had bothered to find out in over a decade. She didn't just fire her Marina Operations Director. She fired her landlord. 14 years ago, a man named Gerald Stone filed Chapter 7 bankruptcy. Jerry owned the Marina's physical infrastructure, every slip, the fuel dock, the repair facility. All 240 slips, the deep water fuel dock, and the certified repair bays, Jerry had built most of it himself over 35 years. When his finances collapsed, the whole package went to auction as part of the bankruptcy estate. Pemberton Coastal Properties was offered right of first refusal. Catherine Pemberton, Victoria's mother who built the business over 30 years, passed. The price was $2.3 million, and she didn't want the capital exposure. Fair enough. Her call. I called Clay Morrison that same afternoon. Clay and I served together at Camp Pendleton. Same unit. He separated 3 years before I did. Went to law school on the GI Bill, built a practice in maritime and real estate law, waterfront property, commercial leases, LLC structures. That's Clay's world. We've had lunch every month for longer than I can remember. Clay doesn't waste words. Neither do I. That's why we work. I told him the Marina was on the market. I told him the price. I told him Pemberton had passed. Pause. Then Clay said 5 sentences that changed everything. Buy it yourself, file it under an LLC. Lease it back to them at market rate. You can always sell later, but only if you want to. So I did. I formed Hoffman Marine Holdings LLC. Put down $380,000 in personal savings. Every dollar I'd saved since separating from the Corps. Financed the rest through a regional marine lender. Purchased the entire Marina asset at the bankruptcy auction. Then I leased it all back to Pemberton Coastal Properties under a master lease agreement. Market rate, documented, notarized, filed with the county recorder's office. Everything clean, everything legal, everything in plain sight for anyone who cared to look. Nobody looked. The lease auto-renewed every 3 years. It renewed 4 times without a single amendment over those 14 years. Nobody in Pemberton's current leadership ever read it. The document sat in the original acquisition files, buried under a decade of personnel changes and organizational amnesia. But Clay read it. Clay wrote it. And there's a clause in Section 14C of that master lease agreement, property manager removal clause, that says something very specific. In the event the lessee's designated property manager is removed, terminated, or otherwise separated from his operational role by the lessee without mutual written consent of the lessor reserves the right to initiate immediate lease termination proceedings with 48 hours written notice. In plain English, if Pemberton fires me, I can pull the lease on the entire marina, every slip, the fuel dock, the repair facility, all of it. 48 hours notice. Clay had insisted on that clause 14 years ago. I remember asking him if it was necessary. He looked at me the way he looks at people when they've said something disappointing. Walt, you're leasing your own property back to people who will eventually forget you own it. Protect yourself. That's not paranoia, that's tactics. So when Victoria Pemberton sat behind that glass desk at 10:15 a.m. on a Tuesday and told me my Marina was outdated, I folded my hands, I listened to every word. I stood up, I picked up my coffee. Understood. Thank you. And I walked out of that building with the same composure I learned in Kandahar, when the mortar rounds are incoming and the only thing keeping people alive is the Marine who doesn't panic. I didn't panic. I walked to my truck, set my coffee in the cup holder, pulled out of the lot, and drove 6 blocks to Murphy's Diner on Harbor Street, the one with the vinyl booths and the waitress who's been there since before I started at Pemberton. I sat down, ordered black coffee, took out my phone, called Clay. He picked up on the second ring. They did it, I said. 2-second pause. Tuesday at 10:15. I'll have the notice drafted by tomorrow morning. Certified mail, return receipt, delivered to Pemberton's registered business address and Catherine Pemberton personally, 48 hours from delivery. That's the clause. That's the clause. I hung up, drank my coffee. The waitress refilled it without asking. Outside the window, I could see the tops of the mast lights down at the harbor. My harbor, my slips, my fuel dock, my repair bays. The Marina Victoria Pemberton had just fired me from didn't belong to Victoria Pemberton. It didn't belong to Catherine Pemberton. It didn't belong to Pemberton Coastal Properties. It belonged to Hoffman Marine Holdings, LLC. It belonged to me. Tuesday afternoon, I drove home. Wesley was at work. Sophia was at daycare. The house was quiet. Rusty was waiting at the door, tail going the way he always does when I come home at the wrong time. Dogs know, they always know. I sat at the kitchen table with my phone in front of me. I didn't call anyone. I didn't send emails. I didn't write posts about difficult decisions and the courage to modernize. I opened a beer, scratched Rusty behind the ears, and I waited. That's the part people don't understand about patience. It's not passive, it's tactical. Every minute you don't react is a minute you're choosing precision over noise. I learned that in Iraq with IEDs on every street corner and a squad depending on me to read the situation exactly right. You don't move until you know where the blast pattern goes. Then you move once, and you move right. Let me tell you about those 22 years. In June of 2019, Hurricane Dennis clipped the coast hard enough to destroy the fuel dock's primary pump system. Red snapper season was 18 days in. 20 charter boats running daily trips, commercial guys pulling quota. Every one of them depended on that fuel dock because the nearest competing deep-water fuel facility is 45 miles up the coast. 45 miles, that's not an inconvenience. That's a death sentence for a charter operation running on tight margins and tighter schedules. I spent 84 straight hours on site. I ran temporary fuel lines from the reserve tank to a portable pump station I rigged on the end of B-dock using hardware I pulled from the repair facility's inventory. I didn't sleep, I didn't go home, I ate gas station sandwiches and drank vending machine coffee that tasted like someone had filtered it through a boat battery. Troy Valdez, my lead tech, 14 years under me, Coast Guard Master Technician certified. He was right there the whole time. Troy's got 3 kids and a mortgage, and he could have found easier work anywhere else. But he stayed because we understand each other. When your boat's taking on water at 2 a.m., you don't want someone who learned their job from a manual. You want someone who's been elbow deep in bilge pumps since he was 20 years old. We kept every charter boat fueled, every commercial vessel running. Pemberton Coastal Properties lost 0 bookings. 0 canceled charters during peak season. $28.7 million in annual charter and commercial fishing revenue kept flowing because 2 guys who smelled like diesel and looked like 1987 knew what they were doing. Nobody sent a thank you email. That's fine. I didn't do it for the email. Christmas Eve 6 years back. A 62-foot sport fisher in slip 126 took on water. Owner was in Denver. Vessel was going down at the stern. Troy and I pulled an all-nighter, pumping her out, patching a through-hull fitting that had corroded past its service life. We saved a $120 boat on a night when every other human being in the organization was drinking eggnog and pretending the Marina ran itself. But here's the one that stays with me. Wesley's wedding 4 years ago. He was standing at the altar in the community center, and I was in the parking lot of the repair facility on the phone with a Coast Guard inspector because a crane malfunction during a scheduled haul-out had created a safety violation that required my specific certification to legally clear. I couldn't hand it off. Nobody else had the credentials. Wesley saw me through the window from the altar. He told me later he could see my truck in the lot across the street. He could see me pacing with the phone against my ear. Neither of us has mentioned it since. We don't need to. He knows. I know that's enough. These days, Wesley coaches his daughter's soccer team on Saturday mornings. Little Sophia's got his determination and her grandmother's stubborn streak. She scored her first goal last month, kicked the ball about 3 feet, but it rolled between the orange cones they use for goal posts. She looked right at me in the bleachers after her kick, just to make sure I was watching. I was watching. I'm not telling you this, so you feel sorry for me. I'm telling you this so you understand what 22 years of holding a place together actually looks like. It doesn't look like a LinkedIn post. It looks like missed wedding ceremonies and diesel fuel under your fingernails at 3 a.m. on Christmas morning. It looks like a son who understands that sometimes duty comes before family moments and a granddaughter who knows her grandfather will always show up when it matters. Wednesday morning, I got up at 5:30 like always, made coffee, checked the tide tables, sat on the back deck with Rusty, and watched the water. My phone buzzed once around 9 a.m. Text from Troy Valdez. Place feels wrong today. She's already measuring the repair bays for some kind of event space. I read it, didn't respond. At 11:20 a.m., another text from Troy. 4 charter captains on B-Dock asking where you are. What do I tell them? I typed back, tell them nothing. That was my only communication with anyone at Pemberton Coastal Properties on Wednesday. I didn't call Catherine. I didn't call Janet. I didn't call Victoria to argue or explain why firing the guy who owns the marina might be a strategic miscalculation. None of that was my job anymore. Victoria had made her decision. Now I'd make mine. Wednesday evening, Clay called. Notice drafted, certified mail and personal delivery both go out tomorrow at 9 a.m. Catherine Pemberton will receive her copy by courier. The registered business address gets certified mail with return receipt. Clock starts on delivery. Good. Once it's delivered, they have 48 hours to respond, but there's nothing to respond to. Walt, the clause is clear. The lease terminates. They vacate, or they're trespassing on your property. You ready for this? I looked out the kitchen window. Wesley was in the backyard working on his Tacoma, the 2018 I helped him buy when Sophia was born. He's got a good job at the shipyard now, making his own way. Sophia was in her sandbox, building what looked like a castle but could have been a fort. Rusty was lying in the grass watching both of them work. The sun was going down behind the tree line and everything was quiet. Yeah, Clay, I'm ready. Good, get some sleep. Click. Thursday at 9 a.m., Clay's office sent 2 packages. One by courier to Catherine Pemberton's home address, one by certified mail to Pemberton Coastal Properties. Both contained identical documents. A formal lease termination notice from Hoffman Marine Holdings LLC, citing Section 14C of the Master Lease Agreement, referencing the involuntary termination of the designated property manager on Tuesday at 10:15 a.m., and initiating immediate lease termination proceedings with 48 hours written notice. The letter was 4 pages. Clay doesn't waste words on paper any more than he wastes them in person. The key paragraph read, pursuant to Section 14C of the Master Lease Agreement executed between Hoffman Marine Holdings LLC and Pemberton Coastal Properties, dated 14 years prior, filed with the County Recorder's Office and auto-renewed without amendment on 4 subsequent occasions. The lessor hereby provides formal notice of lease termination effective 48 hours from the date and time of confirmed delivery of this notice. The lessee is directed to cease all commercial operations on the leased premises and vacate all structures, equipment, and personnel from the property within the termination window. Attached, certified copy of the original master lease agreement, certified copy of Section 14C LLC Articles of Organization for Hoffman Marine Holdings, County Recorder deed from the Stone bankruptcy estate, and 4 notarized lease renewal documents, none of which contained any modification to Section 14C. Every piece of paper was clean. Every signature was original or certified. Every filing was current. Clay had been holding this file for 14 years. The way a good Marine holds a demo charge, carefully prepared, safely stored, ready to deploy when the target presents itself. Thursday at 9:47 a.m., Catherine Pemberton opened the courier envelope. I know the exact time because that's when my phone started ringing. The first call came at 9:47 a.m. Catherine Pemberton. I looked at the screen, set the phone face down on the kitchen table. Rusty looked up from his spot by the back door. I took a sip of coffee. The phone rang again at 9:52. Again at 9:58, at 10:14, a text from a number I didn't recognize. Mr. Hoffman, this is Margaret Henley from Pemberton Coastal Properties, legal counsel. Please contact us immediately regarding a lease matter. This is urgent. I rate it. Set the phone down. At 10:31, Catherine called again. At 10:45, Troy texted me. Something is happening. Catherine just showed up in person. Victoria is in her office with the door closed. There's a woman from legal I've never seen before going through filing cabinets in the admin building. What did you do? I typed back, read your lease. By Friday morning, I'd received 28 calls from 7 different numbers. Catherine, Margaret Henley from legal, Janet Walsh, and 4 calls from numbers that traced back to Victoria Pemberton's personal cell. Victoria's text arrived at 3:22 p.m. Friday. Walt, I think there's been a misunderstanding about some paperwork. I'd love to discuss this like professionals. Let me know when you're available, like professionals. She fired me 3 days ago using the phrase outdated overhead. Now she wanted to discuss things like professionals. I didn't respond. Friday at 2 p.m., Margaret Henley filed a response to Clay's termination notice. Clay forwarded it with a 2-word assessment, no merit. Their argument, the property manager designation in Section 14C was ambiguous and didn't specifically name Walter Hoffman. Clay's response, filed at 4:30 p.m. that same day, included 3 exhibits. The original lease execution document listing Walter James Hoffman as the designated property manager. The LLC's operating agreement naming Walter James Hoffman as sole managing member, and 14 years of Pemberton's own personnel records identifying Walter James Hoffman as Marina Operations Director, ambiguous, sure. Friday at 6:15 p.m., Catherine Pemberton's 29th call came in. I was sitting on the back deck. Wesley was inside giving Sophia her bath, reading her the same book about boats I used to read to him when he was small. Rusty was at my feet. The phone lit up on the arm of my chair. I looked at it. I looked at the water. The sun was dropping behind the marina, my marina, and the light was catching the mast tips of 40-some sailboats lined up along the docks like a row of silver needles against an orange sky. I picked up the phone, held it for 2 rings, then I set it back down. Click. Not the click of answering, the click of deciding. 29 missed calls, 8 voicemails, 2 legal filings, 1 text message from a 32-year-old MBA who wanted to discuss things like professionals after calling my life's work outdated overhead. And I was sitting on my back deck drinking black coffee, watching the sun go down over property that had my name on the deed. Sometimes patience doesn't look like strength. It looks like a man not picking up his phone. But every second of silence was a sentence I didn't need to say. The 48-hour window was closing. Pemberton had no legal standing, no amended lease, and no leverage. Margaret Henley knew it. Catherine knew it. And somewhere in that glass-walled office on the 2nd floor of the Harbor Building, sitting behind a desk she'd had facilities lower to make herself feel tall. Victoria Pemberton was starting to understand that the facility she'd tried to modernize had an owner, and the owner wasn't answering her calls. Saturday morning, the 48 hours expired at exactly 9:47 a.m. I was at Murphy's Diner when it happened, same vinyl booth, same waitress, same black coffee. My phone was face down on the table. I didn't need to check it to know what was happening 6 blocks away. At exactly 10 a.m., Clay called. It's done. They're officially trespassing on your property as of 13 minutes ago. Do you want me to call the sheriff's department? Or do you want to handle this yourself? I'll handle it. Figured you would. You want some company. No, this is personal. I finished my coffee, left a $5 tip for the waitress, and drove to my marina. Not Pemberton's marina. My marina. The parking lot was half empty. Word had already spread through the harbor community the way it always does. Fishing boats talk to each other on the radio. Charter captains text back and forth between trips. By the time legal trouble hits a marina, every boat owner within 10 miles knows about it. I parked in my usual spot, the one I'd been using for 22 years, and walked toward the harbor building. Victoria's white BMW was still in the lot. So was Catherine's Mercedes. Margaret Henley's rental car sat next to them like a life raft beside 2 sinking ships. I walked past them all, past the fuel dock where a lone commercial fisherman was topping off his tanks, probably for the last time. past the repair bays where Troy was standing in the doorway watching me approach. He didn't wave, didn't nod, just stood there like he was witnessing something that needed a witness. I climbed the stairs to the second floor, walked down the hallway I'd walked down every workday for more than 2 decades, and knocked on what used to be my boss's door. "Come in." I opened the door. Victoria was sitting behind her desk, same position as Tuesday morning, but the practiced confidence was gone. Catherine was in the chair across from her, the chair I'd sat in 4 days earlier. Margaret Henley stood by the window with her phone pressed to her ear, talking in the low, urgent tone lawyers use when they're explaining to clients that they're about to lose everything. Victoria looked up at me. "Walt, thank God. We need to talk." I closed the door behind me, checked my watch. 10:07 a.m. "No," I said, "we don't." Catherine looked at me like she was seeing a ghost. Margaret Henley hung up her phone and turned around. The room went quiet except for the hum of the air conditioning and the distant sound of a diesel engine idling at the fuel dock. "Walt," Catherine said, her voice smaller than I'd heard it in 20 years. "I had no idea about the lease, about your ownership. This is all just a terrible misunderstanding." "No misunderstanding," I said. "You fired me. I'm terminating your lease. You have until 9:47 a.m. Monday to vacate my property." Victoria stood up behind her desk. "Walt, this is ridiculous. We can work something out, a new arrangement. Better terms. I was only trying to modernize. You were trying to modernize something you don't own." Margaret Henley stepped forward with her phone still in her hand. "Mr. Hoffman, my client is prepared to discuss compensation for any inconvenience this termination may cause your business operations." I looked at her the way I look at people who think they can negotiate with tide tables. "Your client doesn't have a business operation anymore. That's the point." I turned to Catherine. "You've got 72 hours to clear out. Everything, personnel, equipment, files. After that, you're trespassing." "Walt, please," Catherine said. "This Marina has been my life's work." "No," I said. "This Marina has been my life's work. You just collected rent on it." I walked out, closed the door behind me. Walked down the hallway, down the stairs, past Troy, who was still standing in the doorway of the repair bay. He fell into step beside me as I headed toward my truck. "So what happens now?" he asked. "Now we go to work." "Where?" "I'll let you know Monday." The following Monday at 8 a.m., I pulled into the gravel lot at Bay Point Marine Operations, 12 miles up the coast. 200 slips, clean operation, older facility, but maintained the way a facility should be maintained by people who understand that function isn't an aesthetic choice. Glenn Porter was standing next to his truck when I got there. 15-year-old F-250 that smelled like 30-weight oil and salt air. He had a cup of black coffee and another one sitting on the tailgate. He handed it to me without a word. "You bring the paperwork," he said. "Clay's bringing it at 9. Glenn nodded, took a sip. "I've wanted access to your charter network for 15 years, Walt. You know that?" "I know. And your fuel customer base. I know that too." He looked at me. Glenn Porter is 67 years old, been in the marine business since he was 22. He doesn't use words like experiential revenue or curated waterfront experience. He uses words like draft, displacement, and net operating income. We understood each other. 15-year master lease, he said. "Market rate plus 4% of gross fuel revenue. Had my attorney draft it Friday. Clay will want to read it." I'd be worried if he didn't. Clay arrived at 9 sharp, parked next to my truck, walked over with his leather portfolio, same one he's carried since law school. The three of us went inside to Glenn's office. Wood-paneled walls, marine charts, a framed photo of a 1994 Boston whaler that Glenn still keeps in a covered slip. Clay read Glenn's lease offer line by line. Took 52 minutes. He made 3 minor amendments to the insurance language and 1 adjustment to the fuel dock maintenance schedule. Glenn agreed to all 3 without negotiation. At 11:30 a.m., I signed a 15-year master lease with Bay Point Marine Operations. Hoffman Marine Holdings LLC would relocate its primary commercial operations, all 240 slips worth of tenant relationships, the deep water fuel dock equipment, and the certified repair facility's portable assets to Bay Point's expanded footprint. Glenn had already begun site preparation for the additional capacity. He'd known this was coming. I hadn't called him. He'd called me Thursday afternoon, 7 hours after the eviction notice went out. Word travels fast on the water, always has. The charter fleet moved fast. Within 12 days, the first operators started transferring their slip agreements. Captain Roy Blackstone was first. Slip 97 at Pemberton became Slip 34 at Bay Point. He called me the day he moved his boat. Should have been sooner, Walt. By 35 days after my signing, 14 of 17 commercial operators had transferred to Bay Point. 14 charter and commercial fishing operations, pulling their vessels, their fuel accounts, their repair contracts, and their booking relationships out of Pemberton Coastal Properties. They didn't follow a building, they followed the person who answered the phone at 3 a.m. on Christmas Eve when their boat was taking on water. Pemberton Coastal Properties lost $32 million in contracted bookings within 75 days. The fuel dock sat empty. The repair bays sat dark. The 240 slips started emptying as commercial tenants exercised their own termination clauses. The curated waterfront experience was a waterfront with no boats. 18 days after the eviction notice, Pemberton's board of directors held a formal consultation. The vote was unanimous. Terminate Victoria Pemberton's appointment as Director of Modernization effective immediately. Catherine did it herself, 21 days after my eviction. I heard about it from Troy Valdez, who had started at Bay Point the Monday after the lease termination. Troy's text was 6 words. She cleaned out her office today. No LinkedIn post this time, no hashtags about courage and modernization. Victoria Pemberton walked out of that building carrying a single cardboard box. That Thursday evening, I finally called Catherine Pemberton. She picked up on the first ring. Walt, Catherine, pause. I could hear her breathing. I let family cloud my business judgment. I owe you an apology, not because of the lease, because of what she said in that office, about your work, about the Marina. That was unconscionable. I should have read that lease, Walt. Should have read it 14 years ago and every year after. Yeah, you should have. Another pause. Is there any path back? I looked out the window. Wesley was at the kitchen counter helping Sophia with a puzzle. Rusty was under the table hoping for dropped pieces. Everything was quiet. No, Catherine, there isn't. I understand. I know you do. That was it. 2 people who understood what had been lost because someone with 16 months of hospitality consulting experience decided that competence was outdated. Saturday morning, I sat in the bleachers at the youth soccer field. Wesley was coaching Sophia's team the same way he approaches everything else in life, with patience, precision, and the understanding that fundamentals matter more than flash. Sophia scored during the scrimmage a clean kick that found the bottom corner of the goal. She looked at the bleachers after her kick, just long enough to see me there. I was there that evening. I sat on the back deck with 3 fingers of bourbon, not the daily drinker. The bottle Clay had given me 3 Christmases ago. Rusty was at my feet. The sun was going down over the water. Not Pemberton's Marina, not Bay Point's Marina, just the water. My phone buzzed. Text from Troy Valdez. First week at Bay Point in the books. Feels like home already. I typed back. Good. Get some rest. Big day tomorrow. Sometimes justice doesn't roar. It arrives on certified letterhead, filed with the county recorder, delivered with return receipt. And sometimes the most powerful thing a man can do is sit on his own deck, drinking his own bourbon, watching the sun go down over water that belongs to everyone and no one, knowing that the people who mistook his patience for weakness just lost everything he built. Because facilities don't make a marina. People do. And when you fire the person who held it all together, don't be surprised when the whole thing comes apart in your hands. If you've ever had a boss who thought your experience was outdated until they needed it to save their business, you know exactly what I'm talking about. If you've ever watched someone with a fancy degree dismiss decades of hands-on knowledge, you understand the satisfaction in this story. And if you've ever been written off because of your age or your approach, remember this. Competence doesn't have an expiration date. The people who've been doing the job longest usually know something the consultants missed. Sometimes the best revenge is simply letting incompetence reveal itself.
I'm freezing. I'm bleeding. Slowly fading away. But don't worry. I'm fine. The cold has settled in my heartbeat, like winter living in my veins. Every breath feels numb and fragile. Every smile just hides the pain. I'm breaking quietly in silence, falling slow without a sound. Yet I keep saying I'm okay, while my world burns to the ground. I'm frozen here, I'm bleeding slowly, dying piece by piece inside. But I still whisper, it's alright, just to keep you from goodbye. I'm shattered, love, but don't you worry. I'll pretend till my last breath. Even while my soul is fading, I'll say everything's okay. Maybe pain just learned to live here. Maybe sorrow feels like home. So I wear my wounds like armor, and survive them all alone. I'm frozen here, I'm bleeding slowly, dying piece by piece inside. But I still whisper, it's alright, just to keep you from goodbye. I'm shattered, love, but don't you worry, I'll pretend till my last breath. Even while my soul is fading, I'll say everything's okay. If you ever see me smiling, no, it's just my last defense. 'Cause sometimes love means hiding how much you're suffering. No, I'm frozen here, I'm bleeding slowly, dying piece by piece inside. But I still whisper, it's alright, just to keep you from goodbye. I'm shattered, love, but don't you worry, I'll pretend till my last breath. Even while my soul is fading, I'll say everything's okay. It's okay.
Some days feel off, like I'm standing but still falling. A little pain, a little tired, and no one to tell it all to.
There are days that feel unsteady, like I'm drifting out of place. Every step just feels so heavy, with a smile I have to fake. A little hurt I keep inside me, a little weight I always hide, and 1,000 quiet worries I've been holding deep inside. There's no one here to tell it to, no one who would understand. So I carry all these feelings like they're slipping through my hands. A little broken, little lost, trying hard to just get through. All these nights I stay awake with everything I never say to you. I keep walking through the silence like it's all I've ever known. Every crowded room reminds me how it feels to be alone. There's no one here to tell it to, no one who would understand. So I carry all these feelings like they're slipping through my hands. A little broken, little lost, trying hard to just get through. All these nights I stay awake with everything I never say to you. Maybe one day I'll be stronger, maybe I'll learn how to speak, but for now I keep it buried in the parts of me too weak. There's no one here to tell it to, no one who would understand. So I carry all these feelings like they're slipping through my hands. A little broken, little lost, trying hard to just get through. All these nights I stay awake with everything I never say to you.